Today we're going to be completing this map activity. You should have picked this map up from school, and you'll need the following items to complete the activity: the map, crayons, markers, and a black marker. It could either be the black marker that's in here. A thinner marker is best, so if you have a thin tip Sharpie or a black ink pen, that would also work. Okay, so at any point in this video, feel free to pause if you need to go gather things or you need to pause and fill in what I've done. Feel free to do so. So in social studies, we've been learning about the California regions, and today I'm going to take you through a map activity to show you some of the most important areas and regions within our state, and we're going to be making a map together. So the first thing I'm going to do is move the crayons and markers out of the way and start with just my map and my marker. Okay, so first I'm going to identify the parts of a map that I see here. I see the state of California. I see a lot of lines in here. Those are actually going to show us where different regions are. I see a place to put a title. I also see this part called a legend, which we'll talk about in a moment, and also the byline to show who created the map. There is one thing missing, which is our compass rose. And a compass rose shows us the directions on the map. So I'm going to make a compass rose, and you can do the same on your map. I'm going to do it over in this corner here, and I'm going to do that by making a big plus sign and labeling the directions: north, south, east, west. And that way I can use that resource to guide me if I'm trying to describe something on the map. While I'm down here, I'm going to go ahead and enter my name on this byline. My name is Mrs. Kelly, so that is what I'm going to write. Your name is not Mrs. Kelly, so you should write your own name. And so again, we have our compass rose, our byline, our legend, and up at the top, we have this thing called a title. The title of our map, just going to scoot this down, is going to be, and I'm going to write this in rather large letters, California Regions. All maps have a different name, and primarily this map is going to show the regions. So I named it California Regions. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do with my marker is find some important cities in our state. Before we start labeling the regions, I just want us to get an idea of where important cities are in our state. There are certainly more cities than we're going to label. We're just picking some of the largest cities. Okay, so you might have noticed on your map this star here in the middle. That star is actually going to stand for our state capital of Sacramento. Now we're going to have a lot of things to write in the center of our state. So what we're going to do is take that star and we're actually going to put it over here in the legend. I'm going to draw a black star similar to what's on the map-ish. And I'm going to write the word Sacramento. When we use a legend, the legend gives us an idea of what the different colors and symbols mean. So if I see this, I could come over here and say, I wonder what that is. And I come to the legend and I look at the star and I see the star equals Sacramento. Oh, that makes sense to me now. So go ahead and add Sacramento to your legend with a star next to it. So now you know what the star stands for. Sacramento is the capital of our state. That is where our governor and our state capitol buildings are, where our legislature is, and large courts are also there. Okay, so that's Sacramento, our capital, but we live in Fremont. So now we need to try to figure out, where is Fremont on this map? Well, I know, as you do, that, of course, Fremont is close to the coast, which is going to be on this side of the map. And I also know that Fremont lies within San Francisco Bay, which is this little area here where the water comes in. Okay, it comes right in through here, boop, and it flows into this area. That's what we call a bay. So right over here next to the bay, I'm going to write San Francisco Bay. Notice that I'm using my marker still so it'll really show up. And again, feel free to pause if you need to pause and zoom in and see what exactly it says. So that's the San Francisco Bay. And I know we're near it because we live on the water, all right? This would be San Francisco here. And if we go in just a touch, that's where Fremont is. So through here, this would be like the Golden Gate Bridge, and come across, and I'm gonna make a nice little dot right through, boop. All right, and that dot is Fremont, and I'm gonna write that right on the map because that's where we live, right? We are in Fremont, right there, okay? Now there are a few other important cities within our state. There's lots of them actually, but we're only gonna label a few. We've got Sacramento, the capital, Fremont, we know San Francisco's over here. Many of you are familiar with Los Angeles and San Diego, so I'm gonna go ahead and put a little demarcation here for Los Angeles. It's come down, follow this, and go in. There's this little like half moon, Los Angeles is right in there. And down here towards the southernmost tip of our state, this is where we're gonna find San Diego. Now I did label it actually within the water, but it's just because we have so many things to label on the inside of our map, we don't wanna get it too cluttered. So make sure that you have those 5 cities labeled. We have Sacramento, San Francisco, Fremont, Los Angeles, and San Diego. The next things that we're going to label are the rivers. As a Californian, we know that water is extremely important in our state. We never seem to have enough of it. We're always in what's called a drought where we don't seem to have enough. So our rivers are incredibly important to us. All of our rivers start near these mountains here because the snow melts and drips down the mountain into a river and flows outward. So all of our rivers are going to start towards the mountains and flow throughout the state. We are going to need to draw the rivers as well as label them. And the good news is Sacramento is actually near where most of the rivers meet. So that's going to make this really helpful. And in order to label the rivers, I'm actually going to use my blue marker. So here's my markers. I'm going to use my blue marker to label the rivers. Okay. The first thing I'm going to fill in actually is a pretty important lake that we have, and I bet some of you have even been there, and this lake is actually called Lake Tahoe. So I'm going to use my blue marker, color in that little bubble there, and then take my black marker and label that Lake Tahoe. Now my rivers are going to be in this blue marker. And since we know that the legend shows someone what they're looking at, I'm just going to take a blue line like this in my legend, and I'm going to label that next to it river. So if someone's looking at this map, they're not sure what the blue line is, they'll know that it's a river. Okay, so I'm going to take my blue marker from Lake Tahoe and almost to Sacramento and make kind of a wiggle line like that, okay? And that little line that you just made between Lake Tahoe and almost to Sacramento is called the American River. And I'm going to label that right there on my map. I'm going to have to write small. Try not to write too big. Okay, American River. There it is. And I know it's a little bit small, so feel free to pause this video and sort of stare at the screen so you can get that spelled correctly. All right, so that's the American River. Around the area of the Sacramento, the city of Sacramento, the American River meets 2 other rivers, which then flow into the Bay Area, creating something called the delta. And a delta means it makes like three sides, all right, like a triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the next parts of that American River, okay? It's going to flow down right into the bay here. So we're going to get two actually. It's going to come down, and one part of it is going to flow right here, right to the bay, boop. And the other part of it's going to flow actually somewhat near Fremont and out. Okay, so you can see how it made a little bit of a triangle shape here. We've got one side here and one side there. All right, and that continues to be what we call the American River, but it has a lot of different names as it flows through cities. You can actually see this river pretty clearly, parts of the river anyway, if you've ever driven through Niles Canyon. All right, so that's one river. Then we have another one that flows north from around Sacramento, and it flows north up to the northern part of our state. All right, and that one flows right through this area and almost gets to the top and stops. Okay, now I'm going to take my black marker and label that. That river is actually called the Sacramento River. Now what I'm going to do is actually turn my map like this and label it so that it's a little sideways. Sacramento River. Okay, Sacramento River. Now I'm going to turn my paper back. It's okay that it's a little sideways. And now I'm going to make the next river, which meets again right at that kind of that junction there and flows right down through this central valley here, almost to the end, and then stops. Okay, and that river, my friends, we're going to call the San Joaquin River. I'm going to turn my map one more time, same direction as I did when I did Sacramento, and I'm going to write San Joaquin River. Okay. Those are the most important rivers and bodies of water in our state. We certainly have a lot more small rivers and what we call reservoirs where we save water. But for this map, we're mostly focusing just on the regions. Okay, so I'm going to turn this back the way that it was. And hopefully by now you have the following things, just to review: your title, your by, your compass, your cities, and you should now have 4 bodies of water labeled: Lake Tahoe, Sacramento River, American River, and San Joaquin River. Okay, all right. Next, we're going to move on to some of the mountain ranges. I'm going to actually, before I do that, I'm going to put away my blue marker. I want to keep my area clean. And now I'm going to move on to my mountain ranges. There's a lot of mountain ranges within California, but we're just going to pick a few, 2 precisely. We're going to pick this one that lines the eastern side of our state, right along here. If you've been to Lake Tahoe, you've driven through them. I'm going to turn my map one more time. These mountains here are called the Sierra Nevada Mountains, and they're going to be right up through here. So you'll see I'm going to actually label this a little bit larger. Sierra Nevada Mountains. Okay, Sierra Nevada Mountains. We share this border here with the state of Nevada, so it makes sense that it's named with the same name. All right, so that's one range of mountains. The other range of mountains, I'm actually going to leave my map sideways for a second, is what we call the coastal ranges or the coast ranges. And these are primarily going to be in this section here. So this is the coast. this section in between the San Joaquin River right here, we labeled Fremont. That's going to be the coastal range. So, you know, like Mission Peak, that would be part of the coastal range mountains. So I'm just going to write right here, coast ranges, right there, coast ranges. Okay, coast ranges, right in that section. You don't want to put it here because that's the coast itself. You want to put it here. All right. So now at this point, we've now labeled mountains, a few rivers, and other things. Now we get to label parts of the desert. All right. Our state has so many different types, different regions, and the desert we primarily find down here in this southeastern area of our state where it gets pretty hot. All right. The largest desert that we have in California is called the Mojave Desert. And that's going to be way over here in this section. All right. And it's almost this entire part. Mojave is a Spanish word. And oftentimes the J in Spanish is pronounced with an H. So it's not Mojave. It's Mojave Desert with one S. Two S's means dessert, completely different word. Okay, so down here we have the Mojave Desert. If you've ever been to Palm Springs, really, or even driven to LA, you've probably at some point seen a little bit of desert in that area. Of course, another very important part of our state, the lowest point in our state and oftentimes the hottest area, is a place in the Mojave Desert called Death Valley. Now, that doesn't mean it's because if you go there, you die. It just means that it's so hot, very few things can live there. So Death Valley is a little north of the Mojave Desert, right here on the border. So I'm just going to label it Death Valley right above. And you'll notice I'm still writing rather small. I don't have a ton of room on this map, even though it's a big piece of paper. All right, so now we've labeled our two parts of our deserts here, Death Valley and the Mojave Desert. All right, now, so we've got our rivers and our mountains and our desert. The other thing we have, of course, is the coast. We all know that we share a coast with a very important ocean, and I bet you know it, the Pacific Ocean. So I'm going to label the Pacific Ocean over here in large letters because the Pacific Ocean is very large indeed, and it covers this entire coastal area. So the Pacific Ocean is the western coast of our state. Okay, so now that I have everything labeled, I'm going to cap this pen nice and tight so I don't dry it out. And now I'm going to take my crayons. The reason I'm using crayons is because I've got things in Sharpie and other marker here. If I try to color it in with marker, I think it might kind of blend out and get icky. So instead I'm going to use my crayons, and I'm going to start with coloring in the region that we live in, which is the coastal region. So inside of my crayons, I'm going to find a green crayon. It does not matter which color green. All right, I'm going to take my green crayon. And since everything I color green is going to be the coastal region, I'm going to find coast region in my legend and color in the box right next to it green. So that way when I look at this map, I can see how big the coast region is. All right, I'm going to start up here. The coast region is going to be this entire area all the way down the western portion of our state. All of this area is considered the coastal region. I'm trying my best not to color over the black line because I'm only coloring in the land that's coast region. If I color outside of that, I'm into a different region, or perhaps I'm in the Pacific Ocean. can see Fremont's right there in that coast region. We're going to come down past the coastal ranges. All the way down south. Heading towards LA. Oh my goodness, all the way down here to San Diego. Notice how I'm staying on the inside of those two lines. And when I'm all done, my coast section covers all of this western portion of the state. Okay, that is the coastal region of California. We live in it, right next to the Pacific Ocean. Okay, now the next thing that I'm going to color in is going to be what we call the valley region. A valley is an area between two mountain zones. All right, so I'm going to take with my crayons my yellow crayon. I only have one, my yellow, and I'm going to color in this central portion here, this little blob. All right, first I'm going to color in yellow in my valley, part of my legend. So anyone who's reading my map knows that yellow is the valley. Okay, and I'm just going to color this middle part all around the rivers. Color all around the San Joaquin River. And you can color right on top of that marker and it won't spread everywhere. And you'll notice that most of the rivers flow through the valley region, which would explain why the valley region has so much of our agricultural land in California. This is where most of our farmland is, where we're able to grow crops to feed people in California and beyond. We sell a lot of our crops to other states and other countries too. All right, so there is my coastal region. My valley region all along the center part. My coastal region's on the coast. All right, so there is the valley. And now I'm going to get to the mountain region. Remember how I said a valley is an area between two mountains? Well, we're going to color the mountains now. I'm going to carefully find purple. Don't get it mixed with blue. I'm going to find purple. This one's violet. That works. Okay. I'm going to color in my mountain region box in my legend. So anybody who's looking at my map will know that anything purple is in the mountain region. Brace yourself. There's a lot of coloring for this one. The mountain region is going to be all this section right here, right along the valley, and then this little strip going down. So all of this around the valley, and then this little strip going down. So I'm going to start coloring. And even though it's a lot to color, I'm still going to be neat about it. I don't want my map to look like Scribble Scrabble. Okay. There we go. There's the northern part of our state. All right, and now I'm going to keep going around my valley. And remember, these are all mountains in here. All the way down to almost the Bay Area. Check that out. All right, now I'm going to come on this side, and I'm going to color in these mountains over here by Lake Tahoe and the American River. These Sierra Nevada mountains. All the way down past Lake Tahoe. But I'm not going to color this line here. Carefully go around that. That's a different region. I bet you can guess what that region is. There we go. Oh my goodness, I'm going so far south. All the way down. Whew, my arm's getting tired. I don't know about yours. Now I'm gonna start down here near Fremont. Get that Mission Peak in there. All down these coast ranges that have all kinds of different names. And notice how the valley is always smashed between two mountain ranges. That's exactly what a valley is. It's a low area between two mountains. And I'm gonna get all of these little details here. Okay, and now I'm gonna do the little tail that runs all the way down to the southern part of our state. These are all coast regions. Okay. All right. Whew, my map is really starting to shape up here. And the last thing that I'm going to color in is the desert region. So I'll put my purple, put my purple away, and I'm gonna pick a pink to color the desert region. So I picked a pink. I'll go ahead and color that in the legend. So anything pink signifies that it's part of the desert. And I'll start up here by these mountains, this little strip. Start to color Death Valley. Right on over to the Mojave Desert. If you were a map maker, which you are right now, you would be what's called a cartographer. Cartographers make maps for people to use. And you are now a cartographer. You have made a map of the regions of California. There it is. All right. Make sure that if you're missing any of these parts or labels, you go back and check. You can pause the video and zoom in so that you can see how to spell things. But thank you so much for making your California regions map. Please keep it. Your teacher may want to collect it or have you take a picture of it. So keep it where your brother or your dog cannot chew on it. Thanks so much for your participation today, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.